and welcome to another Tuesday evening lesson. And today we're going to continue again with the Arvut material, the article. As you know, this article is a continuation from the Matan Torah article. So we're following this article called Matan Torah, and it's like a second chapter to the same article. And the article, as we've studied before, talks about something very, very important. Without it, there's no way a person can really attain spirituality, and that's called mutual responsibility. And that's what Arvut really means. Arvut stands for, the word actually means a guarantor. And when a group of students come together, what they like to do is they need to connect, and they have to have this mutual responsibility in order to get to the goal. So this mutual responsibility is very, very important. And for all of us to understand this concept of Arvut, we're going over this material. And now that we're in article Arvut in item number 23, I think we're on item 23, right? We didn't finish item 23. Am I correct? Yeah, so we have to do 23. Okay. 24. We're on item 24. Okay. So let's start with the item 24. So once again, the Arvut article, item 24 up to 23 we finished already, and we've discovered pretty much that for a group of Kabbalah students to advance in spirituality, they need to connect with each other, they need to be responsible for each other's spirituality, and they need to actually ensure that everybody is helping everybody else as best they can, so they can come to this phase of being a guarantor for the other. Why is this important? Because if we want to feel what's outside of us, we have to work towards somebody that is perceived as outside of us. Okay, so item 24, let's see what Baal Islam says. Thus, because of the above necessity, which is the necessity of being responsible for one another as he described up till now, the Torah was given specifically to the Israeli nation. Torah meaning the method for one to correct oneself, and the Israeli nation is actually the group. Israel means Yashar El, straight to the Creator. So a group of students, a group of people who aim towards the Creator are called Israel. So this has nothing to do with a person's nationality, religion, or anything like that. Anyone can be, if they're directed towards the Creator's attribute of love and bestowal, if they're directed towards that attribute, they are called Yashar El, Israel, which is straight to the Creator. Okay? So the group is actually called the nation. So a group of students who've come together specifically for that goal is called the nation. Solely to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob refers to Hesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet. So they're the forefathers, meaning the attributes of the right line, the left line, and the middle line. So we're not talking about people, we're not talking about some historical event that happened thousands of years ago. We're talking specifically about concepts that come together and they become a cause for the birth of the next event. So there's a cause and consequence. Okay, so Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're the cause for the consequences, which are known as the sons, and they're the next states in spirituality. For it was inconceivable that any stranger would take part in it. Any stranger meaning somebody without a dot in the heart. So a person needs to have this inclination to be towards the Creator. Otherwise, he doesn't really have any interest. This is why a lot of people in the world don't have any interest in spirituality with respect to attaining the love of others or bestowing towards others. It's not really interesting to people. A lot of people engage in spirituality or other methods like religion and so forth. Why? Because they feel good about themselves. They feel good, and they should. You know, it's not a bad thing to feel good about yourself, and that's fine. But when we're talking about spirituality, we're specifically talking about attaining the attribute of God or the Creator. All right. So this is very important, because Adam means a person is like the Creator. And that's why humans were created. We were created to be like God. So how to attain that situation depends on how we use a method that was provided. And the forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're the foundations of the method. All right, so they're a foundation. And for the sons, the descendants, which are the next levels that are revealed, they're going to be a foundation, and then the sons are going to receive the Torah. And these sparks multiply daily. Let me read that again. Item number 24. Thus, because of the above necessity, the Torah was given specifically to the Israeli nation, solely to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for it was inconceivable that any stranger would take part in it. Because of that, the Israeli nation had been constructed as a sort of gateway by which the sparks of purity would shine upon the whole of the human race, the world over. Right? So, in other words, the dot in the heart, everybody's got a dot in the heart. So these dots in the heart, they're the nation. And when they start correcting themselves, these sparks actually reflect on everybody else. What does that mean? Well, it reflects on all the other desires that I have. So I have in me Israel, which is a point straight to the Creator, and I also have in me the nations of the world, which are my worldly desires, my earthly desires. That's why they're called nations of the world. They belong to this world because their desires belong to corporeality. Okay? So if your desire belongs to corporeality, it means you're in a desire to receive, and you are a member of the nations of the world. But if you change that desire, okay, and make it bestowal, then that desire becomes Israel. So it becomes straight to the Creator. Why? Because you're able to bestow to the Creator with that desire. So little by little, what happens is you begin to purify your worldly desires, your corporeal, your desire to receive for yourself, and you start to make it and turn it into bestowal bit by bit. All right? And as they become more oriented and corrected, and they become vessels of bestowal rather than reception, then it means that you're becoming complete Israel. So it's like Israel is ruling over all your desire to receive. Okay, so all of these are things that are inside a person's spiritual development. And these sparks multiply daily, like one who gives to the treasurer until they are filled sufficiently. That is, until they develop to such an extent that they can understand the pleasantness and tranquility that are found in the kernel of love of others. For then they will know how to shift the balance to the right, and will place themselves under his burden, and the scale of sin will be eradicated from the world. So as we correct ourselves more and more and more, what happens is we add more to the good side. So the evil in you becomes eradicated. That's what it means when it says sinning. Okay, so a sin means when I'm in a desire to receive for myself, and that means I disregard the welfare of others. So if I'm using others egoistically, or if I'm using others to get what I want, it means I'm sinning, because I'm using somebody else for my personal benefit. Okay, and I'm taking more than my share. So the more I do that, the more consequence I have to pay for it. So that state of self-reception is called a sin. Okay? But if we correct that, then it becomes a precept, right? And all of that, like I said, is in our desire to receive. So all of these things that we're going through is inside our spiritual development. So item number 25. Now there remains to complete what we have said above, item 16, about the reason why the Torah was not given to our fathers, because the mitzvah, the precept, love thy friend as thyself, the axis of the whole Torah, and around which all the precepts evolve, so as to clarify and interpret it, cannot be observed by an individual, but only through the consent of an entire nation. And this is why it took until they came out of Egypt and they become they became worthy of observing it. And then they were first asked if each and every one of the nation agreed to take the precept upon himself. And once they agreed to it, they were given the Torah. However, there still remains to clarify where to find in the Torah that the children of Israel were asked that question and that they all agreed to it prior to receiving the Torah. So he wants to clarify a few things here for us. How can we wholeheartedly agree to receiving the Torah? How is that going to happen? And also, let's read that part again. Now there remains to complete what we have said above in item 16 about the reason why the Torah was not given to our fathers, because the precept of love thy friend as thyself, the axis of the whole Torah, and around which all the mitzvot, the precepts, revolve, so as to clarify and interpret it, cannot be observed by an individual, but only through the consent of an entire nation. So in order for us to observe love thy friend as thyself, we all need to agree to it. It can't be that one of us agrees or a part of us agrees and one of us or a few of us do not agree. Otherwise, nobody's going to attain it. So the nation or the group of Kabbalists who are studying, or the students of Kabbalah who are studying, must all agree that this is what they're going to attain, that this is what we're going for. Because once you do that, you're able to get out of yourself, you're able to perceive the Creator, because your self-concern is eliminated. So once you're free of self-concern, then you're able to perceive what's outside of you. So this is why the whole nation or the group need to be responsible for one another. And the reason it wasn't given to the forefathers is because there was no nation to talk about. So a nation had to happen, which means I have to have a lot of desires, and a lot of those desires must be for corporeal reality. I need to be entrenched in it, you know, just like in the 21st century now, how all our corporeal desires are really pulling us down. So all of these things are happening to us, and what we have to do now is from within this, use the dot in the heart to start correcting. So all these desires needed to come out, and without them there's no way you can apply love thy friend as thyself. This is also why there are so many people now studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, because all of these desires are now coming into effect, they're being revealed. And this is why it took until they came out of Egypt when they became worthy of observing it. And then they were first asked if each and every one of the nation agreed to take that mitzvah upon himself. And once they agreed to it, they were given the Torah. However, there still remains to clarify where we find in the Torah that the children of Israel were asked that question and that they all agreed to it prior to receiving the Torah. So he wants to clarify a few things for us. How we come to that agreement, right? So a group of people, when they come together, how are we going to agree? What's the clarification for all of us to say, yep, this is the rule we're going by, love thy friend as thyself, and this is what we're going to go for. So how are we all going to clarify? It's a question mark. But this phase in Egypt he's talking about here, and this is why it took until they came out of Egypt. Now Egypt is a phase we in the group need to go through. We have to go through that phase called Egypt. We have to finish it off, and then we have to get the Torah, which is attaining spirituality, Matan Torah. That's where the first article we studied comes from. So all of this needs, as you can see, all of these are like little, you know, rings in the chain of events. So Egypt is also a state we as a group need to go through, where we all need to clarify for ourselves that we don't want to remain in our egoistic nature. That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, we don't know how to get out of it. So we have to now turn to the Creator together as a people, as a nation. That's what the group is, so that we can get some help and change our nature. Item 26. Bear in mind that these things are evident to every educated person in the invitation that the Creator had sent to Israel through Moses prior to the reception of the Torah. So that's the dot in the heart. Okay? So everybody has to have a dot in the heart, and that's called Moses. So the dot in the heart is an invitation by the Creator to all of us. Okay, so the group is called the Israelites. That's called Israel. So when all of us have a dot in the heart, the Creator is like sending Moses as an invitation to all of us. So when we come together, all of us should have a Moses in their heart, a dot in the heart that's inclined to attain the purpose of creation, to find the Creator. That has to be. It is as it is written, now, therefore, if you will hearken unto my voice, if you will hear my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be mine, my own treasure from among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and set before them all these words which the Lord commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do. And Moses reported the words of the people unto the Lord. So it sounds like a nice romantic little movie. What happens is actually the dot in the heart, when it awakens, it is able to influence the person in a way to start studying. This is why when a person comes to the wisdom of Kabbalah, he's intrigued by it, he's excited by it, he or she feels that, some answers have been found to some, questions that have been rather, dilemmatic, let's say, it's caused dilemma to all of us, like why are we living, what's the purpose of life? So these questions are now being clarified by the dot in the heart. And so when this dot in the heart awakens, it's searching, looking, and it finds the wisdom of Kabbalah. Inside of us, there is an agreement. This agreement says, yeah, you know what, I want to do this. I want to do this. So this is what the situation is. This is why the elders of the people, the elders of the people are the mature desires that are able to cling on to Moses. So that's very important. So inside of us we have those desires that are inclined to that. So they want to hang on and they want to move forward. As you can see, this is all an internal matter for a person. It's nothing to do with corporeality. These words do not seem to fit their role, because common sense dictates that if one offers one's friend to do some work and he wants him to agree, he should give him an example of the nature of that work and its reward. Only then can the receiver examine it whether to decline or to accept. But here in these two verses, we seem to find neither an example of the work nor its reward, because he says, if you will hear unto my voice indeed, and keep my covenant. And he does not interpret the voice or the covenant and what they apply to. And then he says, then you shall be mine own treasure from among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. So it's not clear whether he commands us to labor to be a treasure from among all people, or whether this is a promise of good to us. So it's kind of like when we come to the wisdom of Kabbalah. We have this good feeling. We want to study. We want to discover. We want to move forward, even though we don't really know what we're going to get out of it. So the reward is always a bit blurry. We really don't know what we're going to do, what we're going to get, how we're going to get it, what the work really even is. We don't know. But when we come, we have this agreement saying, yeah, I want to do this, despite the fact that we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. And he even adds a fifth interpretation, although. And then the writing ends. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. But here too, it's not self-evident if this is a mitzvah and one must delve into it, or a promise of benefit. Also the words a kingdom of priests are not repeated and are not explained anywhere in the Bible. The important thing here is to determine the difference between a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. For by the ordinary meaning of priesthood, it is one with sanctity, and it is thus obvious that a kingdom where all are priests must be a holy nation. So the words holy nation seem redundant. So let's see what further explanations are there for that. So if the group is the nation, and if everybody is in spirituality, then it's a holy nation, right? That's what it says. So that's how a holy nation is, a kingdom of priests. Priests meaning that we're in bestowal. Okay. Item number 27. Let's see. However, by all that we have explained from the beginning of the essay until now, we learn the true meanings of the words as their roles should be, to resemble a negotiation of offer and consent. This means that with these words, he really does offer them the whole form and content of the work in Torah and Mitzvot, and its worthwhile reward. The work in Torah and Mitzvot is expressed in the words, "And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests." A kingdom of priests means that all of you, from youngest to oldest, will be like priests, just as the priests have no land or any corporeal possessions, because the Creator is their domain. So will the entire nation be organized so that the whole earth and everything in it will be dedicated to the Creator only. And no person should have any other engagement in it but to keep the precepts of the Creator and to satisfy the needs of his fellow person. Thus he will lack none of his wishes, so that no person will need to have any worry about himself. This way, even mundane works such as harvesting, sowing, etc. are considered to be precisely like the work with the sacrifices that the priests performed in the temple. How is it different? If I keep the precept of making sacrifices to the Creator, which is a positive precept, or if I can keep the positive precepts, love thy friend as thyself, it turns out that he who harvests his field in order to feed his fellow person is the same as he who sacrifices to the Creator. Moreover, it seems that the mitzvah, the precept, love thy friend as thyself, is more important than he who makes the sacrifice, as we have shown above. Indeed, this is not the end of it yet, because the whole of the Torah and the mitzvot were given for the sole purpose of cleansing Israel, which is the cleansing of the body. So the cleansing of the body is the desire to receive for myself. So cleansing means that I'm studying spirituality in order to correct myself. So I become bestowing from reception. So as long as I'm in reception, I'm dirty. And the study of spirituality, the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah, and the purification process is called mitzvot, precepts. So I used to receive in order to receive for myself. Now I'm just bestowing. So I'm actually cleansing myself. And the more we do that, it doesn't matter with which action you do it, because the action doesn't matter. In spirituality, the action is the intention. So this is why it's giving us an example here. Well, how can it be that a person who's just, gathering harvest or sowing can be the same, great person, great priest? Well, simply because he's doing it to feed his fellow man. So if you're doing it for the benefit of others, it doesn't really matter what job you're doing, because it depends on the intention for what you're doing it for. So this is why in the nation there's no difference between anyone, because if everybody's working towards bestowal, what difference does it make what you're doing? Everybody's doing something in order to bestow to the group, in order to bestow to the friends, so that they can all advance in spirituality. Indeed, this is not the end of it yet, because the whole of the Torah and the precepts were given for the sole purpose of cleansing Israel. So only Only the people who have a dot in the heart and wish to participate. This is what the Torah is given to for. Only to those people who want to purify themselves, who understand that they need to correct themselves. This is the group of people that the Torah is given to. It's not given to anybody else, and nobody else will get it, because specifically it's for the purpose of cleansing a person, which is the cleansing of the body, which is the desire to receive for myself, after which he will be granted the true reward. So the cleansing, after the cleansing, we get the true reward, which is dvekut, which is adhesion with him, which is the creator. So the purpose of creation, okay, and that's the purpose of creation. So a person cleanses himself, becomes a vessel of bestowal instead of reception, then he reaches adhesion with the creator, which is the purpose of creation. That's it. And that reward is expressed in the words a holy nation. So once we all do it, we become a holy nation, and that's the reward. Through the dvekut with him, we have become sanctified, as it is written, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. And that means that you're going to bestow like the Creator. So you can only be holy if you are like the Creator. So a person needs to cleanse himself, and he needs to clothe himself with the attribute of bestowal. Once he does that, and the group does that, you become a holy nation. And you see that the words a kingdom of priests express the complete form of the work and the access of love thy friend as thyself. So the whole thing is around loving others. Love thy friend as thyself. Meaning a kingdom that is all priests, that the Creator is their possession, and they have no self-possession of all the mundane possessions. So all of us are doing everything just to reach adhesion with the Creator, and that's it. We don't have anything else. We don't really worry about anything else. We're not really interested in anything else. This is what we want to get. So that is the important thing in our life. Now that doesn't mean we don't have a family. It doesn't mean we don't have work. We have a family. We're working. We're just like everybody else. In corporal reality, we live like everybody else. Here it's talking about the importance. That although I have a regular life, family, wife, kids, whatever, work, job, I've got all those just like a regular person. But the most important thing for me is spirituality, is adhesion, or dvekut, as he writes here, with the Creator, which is the purpose of creation. And we must admit that this is the only definition through which we can understand the words a kingdom of priests. For you cannot interpret it with regard to the sacrifices on the altar, for that could not have been said of the whole nation. For who would be making the sacrifices? Also with regard to taking gifts, taking the gifts of the priesthood, who would be the givers? And also to interpret the holiness of the priests, it has already been said a holy nation. Therefore this must certainly mean that it is only that the Creator is their domain, that they lack any material possessions for themselves, meaning the full measure of the words love thy friend as thyself, which encompasses the whole of the Torah, and the words a holy nation express the full form of the reward, which is the dvekut. So as you can see here, there's only one rule in the Torah that we all have to keep: love thy friend as thyself. If you keep that law, or if you work towards keeping it, obviously you can't do it, in one hit. It's not going to be just like that overnight. The group is studying for it. It wants to make this inner transformation, and our goal is to come to that state so we can reach equivalence of form with the Creator, and that will be our reward. So in order for us to perceive a new reality, we have to step out of ourselves, and the way to step out of yourself is to step out of self-concern. And the only way you can step out of your self-concern is if you have a group of friends around you that give you so much confidence that you have no reason to think about yourself. So the group needs to be strong enough to give everybody the sensation that everything is taken care of. That's what's called Arvut, mutual responsibility. And we can all come to such a sensation. This is very much possible. And once we all get to that sensation, that means we have Arvut. So that will be our first steps in spirituality. And now we can move to item number 28. Are there any questions at the moment? No? Okay, so it doesn't look like we've got questions. I'll carry on reading. Okay. Item number 28. Now we fully understand the previous words, for he says, now, therefore, if you will hear unto my voice, if you will hear my voice indeed and keep my covenant, meaning make a covenant on what I'm telling you here, that you shall be my own treasure from among all peoples. This means that you will be my treasure, and sparks of purification and cleansing of the body shall pass through you unto all the people and the nations of the world, for the nations of the world are not yet ready for it. And at any rate, I need one nation to start with now, so it will be as a remedy for all the nations. And therefore, he ends, for all the earth is mine, meaning all the people of the earth belong to me, as do you, and are destined to cleave to me. But now, while they're still incapable of performing that task, I need a virtuous people. And if you agree to be the remedy for all the nations, I command you to be unto me a kingdom of priests, which is the love of others in its final form of love thy friend as thyself, which is the access of all the Torah and mitzvot. And a holy nation is the reward in its final form of the Bekut with him, which includes all the rewards that can even be conceived. These are the words of our sages in clarifying the ending. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. They made the precision. These are the words, no more and no less. This is perplexing. How can you say that Moses would add or subtract from the words of the Creator to the point that the Creator had to warn him about it? And we find none like him in the whole of the Torah. On the contrary, the Torah says about him, for he is the trusted one in all my house. So here, as you can see, what we have to do as a group need to come to this rule called love thy friend as thyself. And as one comes to that, one begins to purify himself. Once we begin to purify ourselves, because we're all connected to the whole of humanity, then what happens is it becomes a ripple effect. And that ripple effect begins to attract others, it begins to awaken others, and others also begin to feel the value of this principle of loving others, or being in good connection with others, let's say. Okay? Because sometimes the word love is a bit airy-fairy for people, especially in the 21st century. But if you think about it from the Kabbalistic perspective, what we're talking about here is an attribute. We're not talking about, a Hollywood romantic movie. We're talking about an attribute that needs to be clothed in someone so that that person can perceive a whole new different reality outside of himself. So what happens now as we correct ourselves and the whole reality is connected and interconnected with all levels, still vegetative, animate and human, then what happens is this ripple effect starts to influence everybody on the planet. And all of that actually is also in our own inner perception. Because what really happens is as every individual studies, they correct themselves. And as they correct themselves, they see a corrected world. So it seems like the world is getting corrected, but actually I'm getting corrected. So I'm actually seeing the world as correct. Item number 29. Now we can fully understand that concerning the form of work in its last manner, as explained in the words, a kingdom of priests, which is the final definition of love thy friend as thyself, it was indeed conceivable for Moses to restrain himself and refrain from disclosing the full outline of the work all at once, lest Israel would not want to detach themselves from all material possessions and give all their fortune and assets to the Creator, as instructed by the words, a kingdom of priests. is much like the Rambam wrote, that women and small children must not be told the matter of the clean work which must be in order to not be rewarded, and wait until they grow, become wise, and have the courage to execute it. Therefore the Creator gave him the above warning, no less, but offered them the true nature of the work in all its sublimity, expressed in the words, a kingdom of priests. So as you can see up to here, the whole concept is exactly how we come to the wisdom of Kabbalah as well. This dot in the heart awakens us. We get into the study, we first search for it, we look for an answer, we find the answer, and if we start studying with the group, we're really getting into it without really not knowing what we're getting into. And we always feel like we're going to get something out of it, obviously, because we're a desire to receive pleasure. So we want that reward. So we're going in there with a reward. So Rambam says, well, you know, when a person comes and he's in that state, don't give him the full work, because he's going to be like a little shocked. So this is exactly how it works with us, with any person who comes to the wisdom of Kabbalah, because we come here, we find answers, we want to dig deeper, we want to, you know, we want to get as much as we can until we grow in the study, we become more mature, and we begin to understand that the study has a whole different, you know, aspect to it. And because now we're wiser and stronger, we're able to take care of it, and we willingly want to do it. And regarding the reward that is defined in the words, a holy nation, it was possible for Moses to contemplate, interpreting, and elaborating further about the pleasantness and the sublime subtleness that come with dvekut with him, to persuade them to accept this extreme, to completely detach themselves from any worldly possessions, as do priests. Hence he was warned, no more. But be vague, and not explain the whole reward included in the words, a holy nation. The reason for it is, had he told them about the wondrous things in the essence of the reward, they would necessarily use and assume his work in order to obtain that wonderful reward for themselves. This would be considered working for themselves, for self-love, that in turn would falsify the whole purpose. Thus we see that regarding the form of the work expressed in the words, a kingdom of priests, he was told no less. And about the unclear measure of the reward expressed in the words, a holy nation, he was told no more. So here we can understand also that a person is revealed everything little by little. So when we come to the wisdom of Kabbalah with questions, we get answers to those questions, but just enough to keep us going and not more. And you'll also feel it on yourselves as well, as just like children do as well. Children, even if you tell them a lot of things, they don't really understand, so they don't really hear you. You know, what you say kind of goes by. It doesn't get processed in their heads because it's just above them. So same here, when a person's come to the wisdom of Kabbalah, he's really infatuated with the answers he's getting to the questions. So a lot of the things about how he should be doing, what he should be doing, he doesn't hear them. And it's a natural process. And this is what really, really happens. Until it takes some time, in fact several years, when we chew and digest the material, that we begin to understand, I've got to do this and this and this and that. And now we've got the mind and the ability to actually take on the work as it should be taken on. And that was the last paragraph of this article. Do we still have no questions? Okay, no questions still. Okay, that's all right. So what we'll do, we finalize this article here. Okay, and so no questions, right, Emre? Yeah, no questions. Okay, that's fine. So we finished Arvut here. The main important thing here, friends, is to understand that we're talking about a group who's studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. And this group of people want to come to a goal, which is called adhesion with the Creator, which means to live in the Creator's reality, just like the Creator is living. Just like here in this world, we're we become a grown-up and live in the reality of grown-ups. The Creator also wants us to grow up and live in His reality of grown-ups. So that's basically what we need to attain. And this is what the study is for. And this study should therefore make this inner transformation in us, which is opposite to our nature of reception. And once that transformation happens, according to the story, we get out of Egypt, we receive the Torah, and then we go through the process of cleaning ourselves out, which means we become more and more bestowing. And all of this is made possible by the attribute of Moses that awakens inside a person and leads him to this process. Basically, that's it. When we're all coming to do that together, we need to attain this connection together, and that connection is called love thy friend as thyself. So all of us need to work towards helping each other out so that we can all attain the goal together, and then we can become the nation, the holy nation that the article here is talking about. Okay? Sometimes these texts are a little complicated, and the reason being is it's written by a Kabbalist. It's written like a long time ago, so it's sometimes very hard for us to get our heads around this thing and really decipher what he's trying to say. So this is why we need a teacher, a group of friends, and some decent study material, which is Baal Sulam and Rabash for us. And from this studying onwards, we can really come to clarify all these things through our experiences in the group. So the more we work in the group together with the friends, all of the materials as we study them should become like this little treasure map for us that show us the way to the treasure. All right, so until then, until our next lesson next Tuesday, we're going to love you and leave you because we don't have any more questions. I'm not going to start a new article, but what we want to do next week is start the final phase of these articles, Matan Torah, Arvut, and the peace article. The peace article is also very, very good. It's really, really foundation article that we need to go and study a bit deeper. And as we get more into these articles, you'll also begin to relate to things, I think, a bit stronger during the morning lessons as well, if you're attending them. So because most of the materials are based on these foundations, on these articles, and even from these articles you can see that a lot of the things mentioned in the old manuscripts are also in these articles because they're based on them. So it gives us a really nice perspective about understanding what really a lot of the old scripts are also talking about as well. So until our next meeting, which will be next Tuesday, have a good week. Have a good weekend already as well, and I'll see you guys next time. All the best. Take care. Yep. Okay. Right, and we've got, sorry, just a reminder. Okay, I just saw a note here. Just a reminder, if you have any questions you'd like to send through, right? I've got a reminder here. You can send them to africa@kabbalah.academy, and also Asia@kabbalah.academy, depending what continent you're at. So if you're on the African continent, you can send it to africa@kabbalah.academy, and if you're in Asia, Asia@kabbalah.academy. Okay? Any questions you can shoot us through. We'll try to answer them next week as well. Until then, all the best. Take care. Bye bye now.